Hello and welcome back to Christianity Calling. Now, this one is going to be a little bit of a random video because I have not got any notes with this one because I didn't think I would record a video today, and here we are. So we will hope that it's not going to be too chaotic and too all over the place, this one, considering the fact I haven't got notes. But it is going to be a good one, and the title of this video sort of does lend itself to being a little bit more conversational and not being as restricted by notes as maybe other titles would benefit from. But before we get on to today's video and to revealing the title of it, we have to do the first segment, which is going to be the road to 1K. So if you don't know, all the way up to the goal of 1,000 subscribers, I am adding stars to the board. So if you want to get your star added to the board next time, all you have to do is subscribe. And this time we have one new star on the board, so one extra new subscriber. I think they subscribed a few hours after recording my previous video yesterday. So thank you very much to that person. And as I say, if you want your start on the board, all you need to do is simply subscribe. So the road to 1K is going well. I'm getting a few more subscribers, particularly over the last few days. So thank you to those who have subscribed. And with that being said, let's get on with today's video. And this one is going to be about social media. So it's going to be, is social media helping or harming our relationship with faith? Now, we could answer this question quite easily with a sort of one-word answer. Well, yes, of course it is. I mean, when we think about social media, what is it? It's a sort of just distraction. It's sort of, you just get captivated by these worldly reels, on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is. And you can just go into them, and there's almost a kind of forgetfulness that comes over you, in which you're a sort of lethargy. We're engaging in the sin of sloth. We're lazy. We're just going round. So yeah, the obvious answer is social media helping or harming our faith? Well, it's probably harming it. Obviously, there is nuance to this, and this is what I'm going to get into in this sort of conversational video. Because, it's fine just saying that, but we also need to give credit to some of the positives that might have come out of social media, and we also need to look a little bit more at the dangers of social media in detail for someone who is a Christian, for someone who's trying to live out their faith. So obviously, I'm going to have to restrict this to one platform, and it's going to be the platform I know the best, which is Instagram. Because if I flick between different platforms, I don't know all the platforms, and I don't know particularly how I would relate to talking about them fully. But if we stick to Instagram, I can look at some of the pitfalls that we might have, or that even I myself have faced on there and have fell to in the past. And then it gives us a bit more of a sort of direct conversation to follow. So obviously Instagram, it's talked about a lot that, there's a lot of sort of envy and jealousy with Instagram, with all these, particularly with that app, because the photos come up and you can see, different people's lives and all that, as I've kind of spoken about here and there in other segments of different videos. And that is very much true. So we can get involved with becoming jealous and envious. And of course, to a certain degree, if we're just having the presence of little thoughts and they're not really affecting us when we're seeing those things, that's not too much to worry about. Let's not get into OCD or anything with sin or anything like that. That's not too much of it. But if we are really seeing these things and they are affecting us, and we're seeing this person's life and we're thinking, oh, how I would love to have that life, and oh, they look like got a wonderful life. Look, we've got a lovely family, and we've got this wonderful car, and we have a swimming pool, and this. That really is, envy. That's really kind of desiring things of the world as well, and what other people have, and all that sort of stuff. That is really starting to go more into sin. So, that's one way that social media is harming us, because if we have a tendency in that direction to be envious and stuff, and then these things can just pop onto our feed. These social media platforms are very weird with the way they work. It's almost as if they're leaning toward devilishness more than what is godly. I think we all know that anyway. In that way of that, these things just seem to spontaneously fall on your feed and then draw you in and tempt you in. So, so that's very difficult. And again, we can now look at this more broadly, not only in the way of jealousy and envy and stuff like that, but also in the way of lust and things like that, and also in the way of greed. All these reels come up with people eating wonderful banquets of things and all this. And just think also, I had this thought not so long ago. All these eating challenges that have come around, it's interesting that, like, I had this thought of, well, all this is just greed, isn't it? And I didn't put it because, I've not been Christian all the time in my life or anything. I always thought, oh, these eating challenges, they're cool, they're harmless, and all that, but they're not. They're literally propagating greed and excess. And so, on these reels where you've got these big feasts or these things that are coming up, if you have a sort of desire for food and a difficulty with greed or gluttony, then, this is a pull and this is going to hurt your faith. So this is another way social media would hurt that. And again, in the way of lust, we all know that with all of this, semi-nakedness on Instagram and social media. And again, it just pops up on your feed, or it can pop up on your feed spontaneously, and it can pull you in. And so, social media is sort of built or set up around, or has within it, more devilishness than godliness, let's say. And so, there's an argument, as I've made before, that because social media is like that, and it does harm our relationship with God more than, let's say, increases our faith and our closeness with God, there is a strong argument for getting rid of social media, or limiting social media, or just being very selective with platforms you're on, maybe just being on one, or maybe just using the sort of talking apps like WhatsApp and stuff like that, so you're not seeing the reels and things. Now, this is a journey for all of us. It's a journey for myself. I've kind of got rid of a few social media apps, not necessarily out of this wonderful godliness or anything, just because I've kind of become exhausted with them over time, and I just wanted to not have them on my phone, as many from my generation are getting and are doing. Actually, my best friend, who isn't a Christian, doesn't believe in God or anything like that, or, I would kind of say somewhat agnostic, but he doesn't necessarily believe in anything there exactly. Even he has said to me, I'm not bothered with the social media anymore and all that, and I think he just has WhatsApp or something. So yeah, there is an exhaustion that's happening, and in some way that is actually a positive, and it could be a bit of grace that's happening from God there. But yeah, I have Instagram and I have WhatsApp, and it's a journey for me to kind of get off them. I am going to be doing a video actually at some point where I'm literally going to go off like Instagram and probably even WhatsApp for like 3 days or something, just as a video on this channel, and just see what my reactions are to that. I've done it in the past, of course. I've had like longer breaks from social media, but I want to use that as a kind of, I want it to be an informative video for those watching, but I also want to use it as a kind of template for me for where my pull is on social media, on Instagram, where my pull is with the posts, and really how much it is affecting me. And then I actually want to use that video as literally like something that I can follow on from that in actually deleting them at some point and just getting rid. Maybe not WhatsApp, because I can use that as just a texting app, and if I'm okay with the way I'm using that, if I'm very conscious and controlled in the way I'm using that, it's not too bad. But yeah, that is something I'm looking at. So yeah, there are these things with social media. It does have a lot of harm, and we can easily fall into, even if it's just little sins, we can easily fall into those things. And as I've mentioned before, the problem is with the social media sites is, yes, we can kind of select the content we're being seen to a certain degree, but the social media apps, particularly Instagram, don't let us control our feed 100%. And so it could be that even if you select that you don't want to see this certain content, that certain content, it's probably likely the case that some is going to pop up at a certain time. And since that's spontaneous and you can't control it, and you don't know how you're going to relate to that in that moment it pops up, you could easily fall into a bit of sin, or a bit of, certain thoughts and certain attitudes and behaviors that are arising from you looking at that post, that are then, you are sort of falling into sin a little bit, even if it is just that minor sin. So yeah, social media, that's how it is really harmful. Now let's look at the benefits and the kind of, how is it helping us in any way? Because that's the other side to this video. Yes, it can do, and you can set it up that most of the things on your feed, bar some spontaneous things that come through that are a little bit untoward or not to your liking, you can set it up in a way that, your social media account and your feed is quite biblical, and it's focused on all these biblical content creators and Christian podcasts and all that sort of stuff. And that would be a positive, and that's kind of using something that, social media is maybe more geared toward devilishness in a more godly way. But I don't feel, and this is just my own opinion, I don't feel that the benefits and the help from that's available on social media, the biblical accounts and all that sort of stuff, the Christian accounts and that, I don't feel like that is like quite enough to like sort of overcome the negative side. Some people might disagree with me there, maybe it is, but I personally don't feel it's quite enough, because of that spontaneous nature of social media, and how we can always be, be shown something that we don't want to be shown. And so therefore the conclusion, of course, and the sort of slightly sad conclusion, but also the slightly difficult to navigate conclusion, if we have a closeness to social media and if we use it frequently, is that we are probably better coming off it if we can, or journey along that road to coming off it, which I know is very hard, which I've had difficulties with myself. It's a journey. We have to just move slowly with it. Because if we don't move slowly with it and just say, right, I'm deleting it, we'll probably end up just going straight back on it anyway. It needs to be a steady, wise, considered journey, so that then when we do come off it, it doesn't have a pull toward us again. And that doesn't need to be like an incredibly long, lengthy process, but it does need to be a considered process, and it does need to have some sort of time scale there that allows for that pull and that draw to it to just sort of dissipate, so that then we can come off it properly. But yeah, the best way, if you are using social media, let's put it this way, if you are continuing to use social media, stick to having your feed, having your followers all centered around that Christian theme. Now you might think, well, surely it's harmless enough to have some follows like with other things that are just sort of neutral. You follow different things that you're interested in, concerning your sort of hobbies, whatever that, walking or hiking, or yeah, it is. It's okay to do that. But the thing is, also we've got to recognize, if we're doing that, that can lend itself to the algorithm expanding, and then more maybe slightly untoward things coming into our feed. But to be honest, I think that even if you were doing it with all Christian accounts on your profile and all that, and on your feed, that's going to happen anyway, that spontaneous untoward things occasionally pop up in whatever domain of sin that is, whether it's greed or lust or pride or whatever, envy. That's just going to happen. But yeah, the best way to sort of mitigate that and then use social media just for that godly purpose is have content creators that are all Christian on that feed, and also maybe do Christian content yourself and put that out there, because again, that's for God. It's doing something for God, and you have a level of control in that, not complete control again, because people can cut things up or use things in different ways or whatever if they want to, in a humans in this way, but you have more control of that, and it's also godly, and then you're consuming godly content from your feed for the most part, 90% of it or whatever. So that's the only way I can see where it's really decent, beneficial, and it's not too bad, and you're not going to get into too much difficulty with going into sin on social media. I mean, you can still go into, flicking through the reels. They might be all Christian reels and you're consuming godly content. Fair enough. That's kind of positive in a way. But also you can just be complacent and you can just be scrolling in laziness through them, and you're not even really connecting to that word of God. When you're scrolling, you're just kind of scrolling and being lazy about it. We all, if we're on social media, fall into that. And so that can be a negative in what's positive. So this is why I'm kind of hitting upon this idea that, is social media hurting or harming our faith? Well, I would have to say, even after this bit more of a conversation and inspection, that yes, there are helpful aspects and elements, but actually it's probably harming our relationship to faith. And imagine all of that time. You can think about it in this way, just maybe to wrap up this video a little bit. Think about if you, as many people have done for videos and stuff actually, if you replace your screen time on social media with just indulging in the word of God, or being at church and praying, or praying yourself at home, all these sorts of things, or reading Christian works, of different saints or different scholars or theologians or whatever. Think about the difference there. And there is a real difference, and it's a positive difference. And so, you can see there that actually social media is not as effective at kind of bringing us to our faith, even if we're looking at, Christian content in some regard, than going direct to the Bible and really studying the Word of God, or going to very well-versed Christian theologians and the works of saints or whatever, and really considering them on the page, physically reading a book. When you're doing that, you're really connecting, you're really looking, you're really immersed. Whereas even if, as I've said, you're on social media and looking at Christian content, there's still the very strong possibility that you could just keep scrolling, and you're not really fully present. You're not absorbing it, because that's the way Reels works. They're designed to be short and to shorten your attention span and to make you into this sort of like passive sloth or like zombie type thing of going round. So the books, I would say, and things like that are certainly a better way in that circumstance, let's say. But with that being said, it's 19 minutes. Since I've not had any notes for this video, I probably have done a bit more rambling than I normally would. I will be doing a video probably next where it'll be a bit different. It'll either be something like a day in the life, or there was another thing I wanted to do, some sort of biblical centered video that's a bit more like a challengey video, or a bit more of a vloggy style video. So that is hopefully going to be the next video. I will probably do it tomorrow because it's Sunday tomorrow, so it'll be church. And if I do a day in the life vlog, I don't know whether I am going to do that or not, but if I do that one, then I can vlog. Obviously I'm not going to vlog the church service because I don't want to do that. I turn my phone off in the service, and I like just being present in the service. So I'm not going to record that or anything, but I can at least, you know, record around that, and it makes a nice sort of Christian daily vlog. And so, yeah, that might be to come. Bit different. I wanted to do a bit of a different video because I've done a lot of these sort of talking head videos where, you know, I'm answering questions or looking at a certain topic, and they're great, and they give people knowledge, and they give people different perspectives and stuff, and different ideas. But it's nice to also change things up and do a few different videos on the channel. And I think people might like that a little bit more from me here and there as well. So yeah, with that being said, I'll leave it there, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you've got any comments, questions, or queries, then you know what to do. Leave them down below. And with that being said, I will see you in the next one. So see you very soon, guys.